Hello, and welcome back to the show, the Be a Better You podcast. I am your host, Allison K. Dagny, a two-time best-selling author, subconscious reprogramming expert, survivor, and a coach for women healing from emotional abuse. So in this space on this podcast, we talk about the real root causes of your pain, the patterns that are keeping you stuck, and how to finally free yourself mentally, emotionally, energetically, all that stuff from the aftermath of toxic relationships. So today we're going to be diving into a big one, which is worry. And I'm going to explain to you what worry really is, where it comes from, and why it happens, and how no matter how hard you try to stop, it keeps showing up. And I want you to be able to shift out of this because worry can cause a lot of problems. So if you've ever felt like your anxiety is a form of love, or like you can't relax because something bad might happen if you do, then this episode is for you. So let's get into it. So let's talk about what worry is. Like, what is it? Like, I'm sure you've felt it, or I'm sure you've even said like, I'm so worried about this. And you find yourself like feeling a physical response to something that's possibly could happen, that you're afraid might happen. But really, worry is at the nervous system level, it's a protective response that you've developed that's usually rooted in the fight or flight mechanism. And what happens is it activates like the act of worrying, which really is just thinking about things. The act of worrying, it starts activating your sympathetic nervous system. And so when that happens, that's why you often feel like either buzzing in your body, rapid heart rate, like you feel anxious, and it will keep your cortisol really high. And cortisol is what's found in your tears. It increases your heart rate, and it can even mess up like your digestion, and you won't be able to sleep if you're worrying, like that sort of thing. So at the nervous system level, worry actually impacts you in a very, very negative way. On the psychological level, really it's just a coping behavior, and it for you is creating an illusion of control. Okay, so a lot of times people think, oh, if I'm worrying, that means something, right? On a subconscious level, you believe, and we're going to dive into what that is, but you believe that if I worry about something, then that means something, either about me, about the situation, about the circumstances, and I'm going to dive into that. So it really kind of keeps you in this like illusion of control. Worry does. Now, it's often connected to hypervigilance from past trauma. So if you've experienced something in your past, then this hypervigilance state where you're always looking around for problems or potential disasters and things like that, that's what worry really is. And so ultimately what happens for most people is it becomes a repetitive thought loop, right? If I worry about something, I'll be ready for every possible scenario. Or if I don't worry about it, something bad will happen, okay? On the physical level, chronic worry, like if you're like people say like worry wart, like if you're really a worrier by nature, and this is just how you've always been, even maybe as a kid you would just worry all the time, you're going to have physical issues. You're probably going to have a lot of tension in your body and your muscles. You might get headaches a lot. You'll feel fatigued and exhausted. You may have gastrointestinal issues, adrenal dysregulation. I mean, there's even worse kinds of things that could result from chronic worry like this. And ultimately, it leads to you exhausting all your resources. So what you're doing is you're like a car on fumes, like you're the car driving on fumes. So worry burns out your mental energy, your physical energy faster. So as you're a car, right, driving on fumes, you're going to break down on the side of the road eventually. Okay, so you are the car on fumes if you're a chronic worrier. Okay. So I want to talk about the pattern of worry, okay? So because really all it is it's a pattern of behavior. It's not a personality trait, okay? So if people are like, oh, I've always been like this, I'm just a worry wart, I'm just a worrier, right? No. That is not a personality trait. It's a habit that you created to survive, okay? You had this learned survival behavior that you installed at some point in your life for whatever reason to feel safe. You know, oftentimes our behaviors, no matter what they are, have a positive intention to them. So if you are repeating something over and over again, it's likely because at some point in time, that behavior helped you achieve something, feel safe, feel comfortable in a familiarity or whatever that is, right? So even the worry is so negative and really harms our emotional, physiological, and like our physical states, it is really the intention was at some point in your life to help you feel either in control or safe, something like that. So let's talk about some common subconscious reasons why people worry. Well, some people believe that if I don't worry, then that means something. Okay. So if I don't worry, it means I don't care. So let's use an example about if you're a parent, like for children. If I don't worry about my kids, then that means I don't care as a mom, I'm neglectful, that sort of thing, right? So some people associate worry with love and care. But I'm here to tell you, worry does not equal love and care, right? There's other ways that you can love and care about people without punishing yourself with worry, okay? So I just want you to just hear through these and just think these things through, because this might be something that speaks to you. Another subconscious reason that people worry is because they believe it prepares them. It's that hypervigilance thing, right? If I am picturing the worst case scenarios, then I'll survive better, right? And logically, that makes sense, right? If you think about if I have all of these potential scenarios laid out in front of me, if I think about every single possibility that could go wrong, then I'll survive better. But there is flaws in this thinking, and I will explain what those are. Another one is that if I stop worrying, that something bad will happen. So this is like magical thinking from childhood trauma. So you're associating control with protection. So this is that you may experience this before, but like it's almost like if I worry enough times and then reality shows that something bad didn't happen, then somehow in my subconscious mind, I'm tying that to worrying equals control over the situation and something bad doesn't happen when I worry, right? So why would you stop worrying if you believed you had the control to worry, and then nothing bad happens, right? Hopefully that makes sense. But some people actually believe that the worry that they create inside themselves is actually causing the bad thing not to happen. Okay. And this comes from this like magical thinking from childhood trauma. If I think about worry, and then mom and dad doesn't get mad at me, then somehow I created that with my worrying. Okay. Now, let's try to reframe. Okay. So if you have a pen and paper, I'd love for you to write this down because this could really help you. If you're a worry person, like you worry a lot and you have that habit, you can write this down, put it on a Post-it note, stick it on your refrigerator, put it in your phone or whatever. What story are you still telling yourself about why you have to worry? What does it mean if you worry? What does it mean if you don't worry, right? So what story are you telling yourself about why you have to do this? Is it, if I worry, that means I love someone? If I worry, that means I'll have control? If I worry, I won't be blindsided, I'll be prepared? Is it fear, right? Which usually it is, disguised as responsibility or something else, okay? So you really need to figure out what is your driver. Like, why do you worry? What is specifically coming up for you for that, okay? Now, I want to mention that worry itself as a control strategy, like how this looks, because oftentimes people, right, like I said, they have subconscious drivers that will cause this behavior. The subconscious beliefs create the emotions of fear, and the fear and anxiety drive the behavior of the worrying pattern, okay? And it's like this loop, this circle. So I'm going to explain to you why it often looks like control for some people. So when you've experienced powerlessness, let's say like in your childhood, in abusive relationships, right? You are not the person in power. What happened then is your nervous system learns to stay hyper aware. And when it does that, that means safety. Okay. So your mind automatically starts scanning for threats. It starts scanning for potential threats. And then what it says is like, well, I'm just being prepared. Okay. And logically, I get it. All of this makes sense. But what happens then is then worry starts to become a ritual for you. It starts to become this repetitive thing. And it feels like that you're doing something, even though it changes nothing externally, because worry doesn't actually change our reality. Okay. It's not actually an action that you're out there doing something. You're just in your head, creating a very low vibrational frequency inside your body and quite possibly harming yourself while you do it. So you might think like, if I am anticipating every possible bad outcome here, I'm not going to be blindsided. And if I stay anxious about something, then I'm a responsible person. And you might also think like, well, if I'm expecting the worst, then it won't hurt so much when XYZ bad thing happens. So all these things are about trying to create this illusion of control, because that unpredictability feels really scary and really dangerous, and it's tied to something from your past. It's that memory that keeps coming up. So of course you're going to keep doing that behavior of worrying. Now, here's a little twist on this I want you to think about. Worry really gives you the feeling of doing something. Like, so as I said before, you're not really doing anything, you're just in your head, but it gives you the feeling like you are. And there's really zero effect that worry has on an actual outcome, but it makes you think that you're doing something, because it's like, oh, I'm running these scenarios through my mind and I can't sleep and I'm overthinking about it all, right? So really what's happening in your mind is your brain has a need for certainty. So it feels like temporary certainty. It's like, oh, in this moment, this actually feels like I'm doing something productive, but it's not. Because the loop is that the more you worry, the more unsafe you feel, right? You're creating this like scary scenario, all these scary scenarios in your mind, and then you feel more unsafe. And the more unsafe you feel, what happens then? The more you worry. And then the nervous system never gets the signal to like, stop, hello, stand down, right? That's what's happening. So if you want to stop worrying, and we're going to go through this, letting go of worry, you have to start the reframe, is not about letting go of your care, of your love, of responsibility, or anything like that. You can let go of the worry and still care. You can let go of the worry, still be responsible. Again, for some people, it's about control. And I don't mean this in like a bad way, like that you're trying to be controlling, but like it feels safer if you have some level of control. Okay. So one thing I want you to remember is that you can love people deeply without suffering yourself constantly, because that's what you're doing. It's like self-punishment, that worry that's happening inside of you. You can be a responsible person without constantly being on edge. And you can care about others or your life or yourself or your situation without controlling it. So I want to share a personal story of when I was worrying. So my daughter is, I don't know, she's been driving for like 3 years, but when she first got her license, when she was 16 years old and she passed and she was able to get on the road, I had a little, like the Find My location or whatever on her phone. And so when she would leave the house, I would get my phone out right away and I would watch her location move along my phone. And every time she would like stop on a road where there wasn't a stop sign or anything, immediately worst case scenarios coming to mind. I'm thinking of horrible things of her, like, in bad situations. And this happened for about 2 weeks. And I remember my boyfriend saying, you've got to stop doing that. Like, why are you, stalking her location? And I'm like, I'm worried about her, right? Because she's a new driver and all of that. And I'm not saying that worry isn't normal. It certainly is. We love our children, we love our family, we love our people, right? But I couldn't relax, right? And I told myself that, well, if I know where she's at, then I can get to her faster. Or if something bad happens to her, then I can maybe help intervene or get her the help that she needs or whatever. And that I'm a good mom if I know where she's at, right? That was kind of what was happening to me subconsciously. It's going to be different for everybody. But the reality was, I was trying to control something that I had absolutely zero control over. Zero. I was totally dysregulated. I was in this loop of what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens, right? But the truth is, me worrying was not protecting her at all. It was tormenting me. That's what was happening. And once I realized that, then I started to shift. I used the method that I use for my clients and that I help people with to start to shift out of that. And it didn't take very long because I'm very familiar with this, but this was something I had never experienced before. This was my first child who got her license. I'd never experienced anything like this before. It was all new to me. So I'm like sucked into this like worry trap. But I was able to start shifting out of it. And it didn't take long. And then, now I'm not like crazy stalker mom watching my daughter's location every time she goes anywhere. I mean, how would I do anything? I have 2 drivers now. I have a third one who's learning to drive. I would have no time to do anything. I'd just be on my phone all the time worrying about them, right? So this took a lot of daily intention. It took practice and really the willingness to stop telling myself that the story that I was saying equals love or care or whatever, right? That's the shift. And I'll give you another example, and this really has to do with the health impact. And I may have shared this on another episode, but I'll just remind you about this story. So I don't remember if it was about probably a year ago. I had gone to the doctor to have my blood work done, just general checkup, and my cholesterol came back high. Well, I'm a pretty active person. I eat really healthy, and I was pretty shocked that my cholesterol had come back high. And so when I got those numbers, I got them like on a Saturday in my chart or something. And I remember like, okay, I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to look this up and read about it. As soon as I started doing that, insert all the worry. I started thinking that I was going to have a heart attack. I was going to drop dead any second. I might have a stroke. Like all these things on Google were increasing my worry. And I didn't realize it, but it was starting to impact me even more and worse. So within a couple of days, my heart rate had started to spike because of all this worry. And I woke up in the middle of the night with chest pains. I had gone to play tennis with my kids and my heart was hurting and it was like 178 beats per minute playing tennis. And I was scared. Like I was really scared. And some other things happened. I was like getting lightheaded, like all this stuff. And I realized in that moment what I had been doing was creating these stories, these negative, horrible things that I thought was going to happen to me. And that was actually making whatever was going on inside my body 100 times worse. So I stopped doing the Googling. I started changing the story. I started thinking about things differently. I actually started researching about how the cholesterol numbers out there used to be back in like the 60s, even higher, and now they've been lowered. So the number that my cholesterol came back at in 1960 wouldn't have even been that high. It would have been normal. So as I started to do this, I realized that the only thing that was creating this physical pain, these symptoms in me, was my brain, my thoughts, my worry. And within a week of realizing this, I was back to normal. Like I was not having these symptoms anymore. My heart wasn't hurting. I wasn't waking up like nothing. I was creating this by my brain. Okay? So worry can manifest in lots of different ways in your body. It can show up in different parts of your body. for me, it was specifically related to my heart because I went down this Google rabbit hole and was starting to see all these, articles about, heart disease and strokes and all these heart attacks and stuff like that, right? So that's where it was settling for me. But it could be something different for you. It could be, like I said, headaches, migraines, tension in the body, stomach issues, right? Like it can go on and on. So it really is important to make sure that you check yourself and that you aren't letting your mind take over in the worry. Because not only can it do that, right, the physical stuff, it steals your joy from the present moment. Like if I was sitting there with my boyfriend or my kids while my daughter was out driving and we're trying to like play a board game or watch a movie, I can't be present because I'm worrying. Okay, so it steals the joy out of your life because it keeps you in the future. That's where you're not in the present. You're in the future. Like, what if this? What if that, right? It also, which is interesting, reinforces fear. It reinforces, for some people, scarcity or lack. Like if you're worried about money, if you're worried about not making ends meet, right? And you're just repeating this cycle in your mind that there's not going to be enough. I'm not going to have enough money. I'm going to be destitute. I'm going to live under a bridge, right? All that stuff. The worry doesn't actually change anything. Your action behind it does. And worrying isn't the action that you think it is, right? Looking for jobs, filling out applications, networking with people, right? Trying to create something, sell something, start a business, like whatever. Like that's the stuff that will help you, not the worry. The worry just keeps you in the limit, lack, scarcity, fear mindset. Okay? And the other thing is sending out this frequency, and I mentioned this before, we all have energy. And so the frequency that you're emitting is a signal that you're sending out that becomes your lens for reality. So if you're always expecting bad things to happen, you're going to see more bad things, right? If you are somebody who's like had a really bad day but can find the silver lining, can be in gratitude for the good things, and can pull yourself out of like listing all the shit things that happened to you that day, you're going to be a much happier person and you're going to pull yourself out of worry. This is a choice, okay? And if you're having trouble with this, I do help people with this, and I help people all the time. We have to shift our thinking. We have to get our bodies regulated, our nervous systems regulated. All this stuff matters, okay? So what you vibrate, your frequency, is what is you're going to see more of. It has to do with your reticular activating system and that part of your brain that filters out things. So if you're constantly focusing on something bad, your brain's going to say, this is what you want to see, so I'm going to show you more and more and more of that. But we don't want that. We want more of the good stuff. Well, we have to start looking at the good stuff. Worry is not neutral. It's magnetic, right? It is a frequency. It is an energetic frequency. So if you're worrying all the time, you're sending out that signal. And that signal is going to be matched. So why wouldn't we try to send out a different signal? One of peace, one of calm, one of excitement, one of joy, right? That's what's important. We got to shift that frequency. And you do this in a lot of ways. You do this with your brain, you do this with your thoughts, you do this with your body. Okay? There is a famous quote by Corrie ten Boom. She's an author, and she said, "Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength." And that is so true. Because if you believe that worrying is going to solve your problems, I'm sorry to tell you, all it's doing is taking away from you right now. So how do we begin to shift? This is, I think, if like you have that pen and paper, I have 4 steps I'm going to share with you to start to shift this. Now, these are not the 4 steps in my proprietary rapid reprogramming training that I teach my clients, my one-on-one clients, but this will help you, okay? So you can first, you need to like acknowledge where this is coming from. Okay. Acknowledge the root. This happens in your nervous system. Okay. Your body is a huge, huge factor here. We have to take that into consideration. You're not going to shame yourself out of worry. Okay. You're not going to say, oh, I know I shouldn't worry, but I'm worrying and I know that's so stupid of me and I know that's so dumb and I know that I'm being ridiculous. Like, you can't shame yourself out of worrying. What you first got to do is start to regulate your body. If you're a breathwork person, you like breathwork, do that. I don't like breathwork, but a lot of people love it. If you like physical movement, somatics, yoga, Tai Chi, heavy weightlifting, right? You can do all these kinds of things. You need to choose what's going to work best for you, but your body needs to move. Grounding is also very good. If you've never done grounding exercises, it's simple as taking your shoes off and going for a walk outside. Okay? There's other ways to enhance it and make it even more powerful, and that's great. But like, you've got to get your body regulated first, because your body senses that worry and it's going to show up in physical ways. So we've got to connect with our bodies. Step 2, you got to challenge the stories. Like, what do I believe is going to happen if I stop worrying? Right? Even worst case scenario, what do I believe is going to happen if I'm not worrying about my finances, if I'm not worrying about my children, if I'm not worrying about my ex, and if I'm not worrying about what's going to happen if I'm not worrying? I'm not going to be prepared. I won't be able to handle it. I'll be blindsided, right? What are those things? And then I would ask you to challenge that, right? You can challenge those thoughts too, because isn't it possible that maybe in the past something did blindside you and you figured it out? Something happened out of the blue and you dealt with it, right? And you didn't have all that worry ahead of time, because we can't know and predict the future of every possible scenario, right? What if everything was going great in your job and then all of a sudden your boss came to you and said, hey, we're having some problems here and we have to do some layoffs, and you happen to be one of those people that got laid off and you had no idea it was coming, right? Well, you weren't worrying about that before and you figured out what to do after it happened. Now, there might be new worries that pop up. Oh, I'm not going to have any money. I'm not going to be able to support my family, right? But that actually isn't the thing that keeps people safe. It's the action, it's the planning, it's the, all right, what am I going to do now? How am I going to move through this? How do I want to think about it? What's the better way to deal with it? Okay? So what do I believe will happen if I stop worrying? The other one is, what emotion would I have to feel if I didn't worry? That's another thing. Some people may be like, I didn't even think about that. What would I have to feel if I wasn't in this state of worry? Okay, because that could be partly why you do it, because you don't want to feel something else. And then, what would love feel like if it wasn't so heavy or scary? Okay? And the reason why I brought this one up, it goes back to that like old familiarity thing. So for many survivors of emotional abuse, especially if you grew up in a family like this, that love was heavy and scary, and love came with conditions like be quiet, don't need too much, don't set boundaries, right? So it means like I have to walk on eggshells, I have to be really careful, I have to think of all the things, I have to, manage my parents' emotions or be responsible for someone else's behavior, right? So your nervous system then starts to learn that love equals worry, pressure, guilt, fear, unpredictability, okay? So that's why when love starts to feel safe or things feel safe, we start worrying again because it's not familiar, okay? So this is all about retraining yourself, retraining your mind and all of that, because your subconscious mind is looking for what's familiar, and it repeats what's familiar, not always what's healthy or what's good for you. So if you've only known love as scary, heavy, self-sacrificing, controlling, anxiety-ridden, like all of that, then feeling into the safety and not worrying might feel like you're disconnected from people. It might feel like there's not really love there. That peace could feel like absence, even. Or it might feel like you're just like super overwhelmed with vulnerability or something like that if there was trust. So, what if love wasn't supposed to feel like that worry, that anxiety? Like, that's the connection that a lot of people miss. And that's why I want to bring that up, because sometimes if that's all you've known, right, was that worry was connected to love, or that anxiety was connected to that, then of course that's going to be something that you repeat. And then part of this, when we start to challenge it, is to urge ourselves to kind of let go of those old beliefs that are keeping us stuck. So, like, if I stop worrying, then I'm not going to have connection or love with this person. Or, if I'm not worried about it, then I'm going to be responsible for the downfall of X, Y, or Z, right? So one thing you can do, just as an aside, if you have your pen and paper, is to ask yourself, like, what would love feel like if I didn't have to constantly worry? Because then you're kind of checking in with yourself, like, out of the unfamiliar space, right? This is unfamiliar to me if I'm not worrying. So what would that feel like? And is there any part of you that resists that? Any part of you that feels uncomfortable with letting go of the worry? So, like, if love was just light and steady and safe and supportive instead of terrifying, right? What does that, how does that make you feel? Like, is there anything that you would have to give up or anything you would have to lose if you felt love like that? So just something to consider there. Okay, so I kind of went off a little bit, but let's come back to the third step here, which is to practice your new way of thinking, your new neural pathways. The language that you choose is key, okay? So I love using words that is in the present, like I am, or I choose, or I decide. I think they can be really empowering. And if you shift your language, you can bring yourself back to the present moment too. Like, I choose to trust this moment. Something like that. I am safe when I don't worry, right? There's lots of ways that you can shift your language, because what you have to do is hear the language that's coming up inside your mind, and then, like, be self-aware and say, okay, what's wrong with the way that I am thinking about this, and how can I change it? Another part of this is visualizing the best case scenario instead. So if you're worried about, like, for instance, I used to get really bad anxiety flying. And when I would be in the airplane, I noticed that my mind would go to these horrible, horrible situations while I was in the airplane. And I would get really bad anxiety about it. So I was like, wait, I need to start changing this. So I would start thinking of the plane landing smoothly, me grabbing my bag off the overhead bin, walking out, waving to the pilot, saying thank you, getting off the runway, going inside, blah, 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 getting into my car, going to my hotel, right? That was the visualization I had to recreate. So these are the things that you have to do, like, consciously. So if you're worried about, let's say, money, you have to visualize the best case scenario, not the worst case scenario. And sometimes that feels backwards to me, because it's like, oh yeah, but if I'm not thinking about all the bad things, then I'm not going to be ready. I'm not going to be prepared. I'm telling you, that's not the way the mind works. So you need to use your visualization and visualize the positives. You can also have reminders for yourself, if this is helpful, to tell yourself, worry is not love. Worry does not equal love, right? Presence equals love. Time equals love. Commitment equals love. Honesty equals love. Worry does not equal love. Okay? to remind yourself about that. And then number 4, the last step, is commitment. Okay? This is not a one-time thing. Changing your relationship to worry takes repetition, it takes awareness and commitment. You have to be willing to stop. And I'm not saying, like, I used to say a lot, I'll try. And I don't say that anymore. Because if I say I will try, that gives me room to not do what I said I was going to do. So I say, I am committed to this. I am committed. Now, does that mean I'm going to be perfect every time? No. But try is so, like, to me, it's so much more weak than committed. Like, it's a weaker word. And I am really big on using and choosing the right words in our language intentionally, because it changes you. So I am committed to changing this relationship with worry. Okay? Because you've got to stop falling back onto the story that worry equals love, because it doesn't. And you have to stop saying that, well, this is just who I am. I'm a worry wart. I just always have worried my whole life. Because it's not. That's not who you are. It's who you had to be to survive. But now you can change the story and you can be safe in who you are right now. Now, I just want to wrap this up and remind you that worry is not keeping you safe. It's keeping you scared. Okay, it's that loop that we talked about. And your nervous system deserves peace and rest. Your body is craving a good night's sleep. Your brain wants to stop the pounding from the migraines, right? Your mind deserves that peace from the constant worry. Your heart deserves that freedom. You deserve it. This is so important because so many people get stuck in this low frequency vibe of worry, which is really just fear. Okay? So if you're ready to break this habit of worrying and you want to uncover the root beneath it for you, because it's, like I said, it's going to be different for everybody. This is the work that I do with my clients every day, because most women who have experienced emotional abuse are stuck in this fear and worry and anxiety. I know I was. Not everybody, but the majority. So whether it's inside my Emotional Healing Mastery one-on-one program, or if you just want to get on a free call with me, the root cause call, and we can maybe untangle it there. You don't have to carry this worry forever. You can be at peace, and it doesn't mean you're a bad person or you don't love people if you're not worrying. And if your body is like kind of cringing when I say that and you're like in resistance, you probably should schedule a call with me, because that means it needs some attention. Okay? There's nothing wrong with you if you're a worrier. 100% nothing wrong with you. It's a habit. Remember, it's a pattern that your body has installed, your mind has installed to keep you feeling safe or in control or let you love people or whatever that might be. Okay? So there's not anything wrong with you, but if you continue down this road and you continue to worry, you're negatively impacting not only your relationships with people, but you're impacting your emotional health and your physical health. So thank you so much for listening today and tuning in. I see you and I honor the work that you're doing to heal yourself, because I know that healing from emotional abuse wounds is not easy, but you are showing up. You are listening to this podcast and you're probably doing other things to help yourself as well. So give yourself the credit, because you deserve it. So whether you are somebody who's just beginning to untangle these patterns, or you're deep in the process of already reprogramming what you've believed for years and years, please know that I am here to support you every step of the way. And I really appreciate you being here and listening. And I don't take lightly that you've let me into your healing space. I see how many downloads I get every week. And I know that each and every one of those downloads is a unique and individual person. So if today's episode spoke to you, I would love for you to share it with someone else who might need it, because I'm sure you know other people who struggle with this too. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. I'm here. can reach out to me anytime. I'll see you next week.